Are you sure these people want us?
I know they do.
You can call me Mama.
It's hard to feel like I'm the only one who sees these things. 70% of the kids in the system are there because of neglect. The other 30% are put through hell. We need your help.
Welcome to the Catholic Film Club, where we talk craft and conscience at the movies. My name is Michael Coy for Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas, and I am joined by the creator of Sound of Hope, the Story of Possum Trot, Joshua Weigel. Thanks, Josh, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
And this is a story about the real-world foster care, and so we have a representative who's on the front lines of foster care, Kathy White. Thank you for joining us, Kathy.
Thank you.
This story was recently endorsed by our Archbishop Joseph Naumann. Kathy, can you tell us why he made that endorsement and why you're on campus showing this film?
I've been in this position about just over a year, and I believe that he learned that children were sleeping in offices. You know, they weren't homes, and he's just passionate about making sure that every child has a home. So he brought me, and the pro-life office and Archbishop Naumann brought me on board to, that's my sole focus, is to promote foster care ministry in our churches.
And I just wanted to say that this movie really drove home that this is a easier said than done proposition. And this is taking, like, really giving yourself to, as a parent, to a child in need. It's not an easy process. And Josh, I just wondered if you could tell us what drew you to this true story and why foster care was that driving force for you.
Well, we had, my wife and I worked together, so we made this movie together. She and I produce and write, and then I direct. And so we had begun the process of adoption years before this, and so it was something that was a priority to us. We just felt personally really that this was a priority for believers in general and just us as a couple. We'd always wanted to do it and just didn't know when it would happen, and finally got to a point where it was like, I don't think this is going to happen if we don't just dive in and do this. And so we began that process, ended up with two amazing kids, and so a number of years later, my wife began working in the foster and adoption kind of arena, working with churches to help find homes for kids. And that's when she came across this story. So Bishop Martin, it was Reverend Martin at the time, he and his wife lead Bennett Chapel Missionary Baptist Church in East Texas. And we'd all kind of heard of, if you're in this space, you sort of hear about this little community somewhere that emptied the foster system in their area. And we ended up meeting them. Rebekah met the pastor and just hit it off. And so it did not take long before we felt like we needed to move all of our other projects to the side and focus on this, partly out of just, almost like principle, like this, the orphan needs to be the priority. And we know the orphan is a priority to Jesus. This is a big, big deal, It's one of those fundamental things that really demonstrates where your faith is. And I think we just felt compelled to do it. This is something we needed to do. So got to know the story more, ended up visiting the region a number of times, and just really drawn into the whole story.
In the movie, Donna Martin, who's portrayed by Nika King, she says that God spoke to her. Was it the same feeling for you guys, or was it a slower process?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, Donna Martin had a very distinct moment with God. It was really powerful, and I think for us it was a process of coming to that realization. And but yes, ultimately we do feel like the Lord made this clear to us that this needed to be the priority. But it was a step of faith. Much of what we do, the way that he speaks with us is it's usually a pretty significant step of faith into something. We don't get the audible voice of God kind of moments, those sorts of things. But that's really, I think that's most likely that's how most of us are. We don't get the clouds parting, and that's what makes this difficult is because it is such a serious endeavor that I think people kind of wait for that. They wait for something so significant to happen when really it's plain in the scriptures. That's the most significant thing that we have is how God expresses his heart for these children, you know. So yes, and also it's just plainly there in scripture.
It's that small voice,
Yeah.
right? One thing I love about the movie, and I do want to talk about the filmmaking aspect too, because it is beautifully made and produced and acted. But one thing I love about it is that it shows that God's love is not some sort of promise that everything is going to be okay every day, but that there's something on the other side of it, that there's hope. Tell us about writing the story, and so much of this film there's no easy answers. Can you tell us why, like, what kind of motivated you to make that a central part of the film?
So I think, going back to your first question, a part of me coming to the realization that this was a priority was when I got into the story more and heard more of what these kids lived through. It felt more in line with me creatively. There's the overarching challenge of a story about 22 families who adopted 77 children. So it's a lot, you know, it's just narratively, that's a lot to do in a couple of hours. So the practical challenge. But then I think narratively, I'm really not interested in stories that just dip their toe into the reality. And so realism is a big part of what I think is important, especially if you're dealing with anything like this. You know, when you say adoption and orphan, lots of things come to mind. But one of them is it can be very soft and Pollyanna and feel good, and there's a lot of fear about how do you deal with hard things. But this is the primary responsibility for the artist, is to figure out how you can communicate these real and important things in an entertaining way that are honest and fair. And so that's our creative approach. If we can't be authentic with it, we don't want to do it. And we were really pressured to be inauthentic by the industry that typically does these kinds of things. So the faith industry, you know, they're not used to a lot of realism. Realism is off-putting. It's too much. And I think, you know, having our own experiences with adoption, knowing so much about it and what people face, you know what these children live through. You want to be fair to them, and you want people to understand what they're kind of up against, so that you go into this informed and ready for the challenges, because it can be overcome. You know, this is the core of it all.
So I find that
I was going to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No. You may not know this, Josh, but I didn't want to promote your film at the beginning. I wanted to see it first, because you have to be eyes wide open, you know. And I think that at the beginning, it does, you know, at the beginning it's like, oh, like, come to mama, bring me the babies, you know. And I remember thinking, I don't think so, just to be honest. And then you get to a point in the film where it kind of gets real, you know, like, and it really, the struggles, the behaviors, and then when everyone starts relying on each other and their community and on the Lord, that's when, like, okay, let's do this.
That's
know,
right,
like,
and that was intentional, because I think
so
most of us who've
good.
done this, you kind of start out in that space, like heart. We can deal with the challenges, and there is a lot of that. And even the kids themselves, they'll come in calling you mommy and daddy right away. But it doesn't take long before the reality hits everybody. And so that's what we wanted to set it up. We purposely mirrored kind of the natural experience you have. So yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I didn't. No.
We did. Figure
No, please. So we're showing this to primarily college student audience here at Benedictine, and I was talking to my fellow producers that, you know, the movie ends on what could be mistaken as like a moment of sorrow, but I think if you live in faith, you understand that that's catharsis, and that is a moment of hope. Not to spoil it, because I really think people should see this movie, and I think actually that's what I know that that's what these students want out of art, and they don't want the easy answers or the soft pedaled answers. So I just wanted to say that. Why did you want to end the movie in that way? Why did you want to end it there?
I think ultimately, the stories that I'm interested in telling are the ones that they don't have to be true. This one happens to be a true story, but I believe very much in the things of God, truth, these things that you don't even necessarily have to grapple with in a religious context. The fruit of these things is so good and strong that you can go into very scary places and know you're going to be fine, because truth wins out, goodness wins out. These kinds of things naturally go the right direction. So I feel really confident about delving into those kinds of things. I think it's important. It's what the world needs. There's all kinds of other voices that will say other things. Either it's too easy and trite, or it's nihilistic and it's fatalistic and things that really don't lead you to truth. So I'm not, on one hand, I'm not just trying to tell stories that make you feel good. I think I want to partly approach this with some sense of responsibility in terms of gifting and calling, and also just responsibility with reality and truth. Like, let's tell the stories and go into them and be honest about them. So that story, that ending, I want people to experience it, and I don't want to give it away, but it's just a great way to end the story because it's real and it happens to accomplish a number of things. This is a really challenging thing to do, but it doesn't have to stay there. And so we wanted to end in a way that allowed you to feel hope, but was also really had its arms around a real moment. Like, you just know there's more ahead, but there's enough here that, okay, I can accept. So you'll get that more if you see it, but.
Yeah, and I don't think this would be a spoiler. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you do get to see the real faces of Possum Trot in this film, and it's amazing because this is a true story. It feels real, and then I'm watching, I'm like, wait, that's because it is real. Not that that's like an easy thing to translate. You can make plenty of real stories that feel fake, but Kathy, you're living the real story. You're seeing, as a foster care minister, you're on the front lines and you're seeing this. What's something about, like, how does Sound of Hope ring true for you in your experience?
How much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding. When you were talking about the small voice in the back of your head, like, so many people want to turn that off, and as we did a screening of the film in Kansas City and had like over 200 people come. It was amazing. And so many people are like, Kathy, I really, I'm like kind of too old to do that. I'm empty nesters. And so one of the things that we've been talking about is not everyone can bring a child in their home, but everyone can do something to support those that can. And so just mobilizing, the church to say, how can you get involved in this space? And does that mean bringing meals? It just is a small little thing is, bringing meals to someone who's doing the hard work. Or, I have an empty nester who is sewing stuffed animals. And she's like, I can't bring a child to my home, but what do you like to do? I like to sew. So she's got these stuffed animals that she's been stitching, and when a child comes into care, they get to pick one, and just the visual of these kids just hugging. When they come into care, sometimes they don't get to bring anything, so that's been amazing. It is hard space too. I'm just like.
That's a really important point, though, because when this subject comes up, that is one of the first things that comes to your mind is, do I need to adopt or foster a child? Which there are plenty that are in need. There's 100,000 kids that need a home right now in America. So it's a big need, but there's so many other ways to support and get involved. And this community, that's one of the strengths of the story, is that not everybody in this community did the adopting. But they are a very tight-knit community, and they're emblematic of all kinds of hundreds and hundreds of communities like it. In fact, just churches in general. Like, this is the nature of the family of God as a community. And so we have all the tools, and you could be one of those tools that maybe is indirectly essential to the success of the ones who are doing the direct adoption and care of the kids. So it can be that. I mean, it just as little as it might sound to give a family a break, if you were to get qualified to watch some of these kids and give them a break, or the church has a night where the kids are dropped off. These are life-saving things, that you just need a breather sometimes. And so that's a really critical part of this whole situation.
We had a person who came up to our family and said, "Kathy, can we provide respite for you?" And I was like, "You know what respite means?" And yes, please. So she did, and continues to be involved in our, just to, when we have to, when we had to drop our oldest off to college, she watched our littlest so that it would not be a traumatic experience for him, because someone who comes from rough places, and all of a sudden we're dropping someone off and she doesn't come home with us, he may then be triggered to think, when am I going to be dropped off and not picked up? That sort of thing. So, so respites are awesome. We are really mobilizing churches. I've been meeting with pastors and deanery priests and churches, and just starting foster ministries, which is awesome. And we're just wrapping around those families who are doing the hard work.
Yeah, we call it wraparound. That's kind of how it's known. And honestly, those who are probably primarily watching this, this story, like, some of my most treasured screenings have happened on college campuses. And there's something about that age, you're aware of so much more. You have this amazing resolve, to really confront this world's problems, especially if you're someone of faith. You've got that part compelling you as well. And so whether or not you're ready to actually adopt and foster, that is a critical age where really powerful things can happen just in support. Younger people getting around those who are sort of in the trenches play a vital role. And then they're also kind of right in line for more. So it may become more for you. But I've just found this to be a group of people that really understand what the spirit of this story is after. And really that is, on some level, kind of a social justice thing, but really it's just this, it's the heart of Jesus. You think about lost, alone, hurting, abused children. I mean, who else would occupy the mind of Jesus than these children who can't help themselves, the innocent of the innocent. So that's where my mind and heart goes, and that's where the spirit of this movie is, and this community. That's what it was. Okay, there's kids in need in our region. We're going to do something about this.
That's beautiful. I mean, I'm not sure I know what respite means, but just kidding. I think I do.
I will say, it comes straight from our catechism too,
the kids
right?
at this college, they know what respite means. I just want everyone to know. So I wanted to ask you more about bringing this film to life, and the people in front of him behind the camera, including your wife, who co-wrote and co-produced the film. Actually, I noticed that you had a cameo in the film too, as one of these people providing a little bit of support.
Yeah.
Just a little in that film.
Very little. Yeah. So this one sort of surprised us in some ways, because I have never set out to make what I think of them as genre films, the faith-based films. Right. They have a lot of markers that the film industry looks for, so that it qualifies to kind of fit in that space. And that's all the typical kind of filmmaking or film business kind of thinking. Is this going to work? Is there going to be a market for it, and all that? So I was surprised to be so compelled by something that was so directly faith-oriented. It's about a church community. But it felt so natural when we were creating this to weave that in, because it all really just grew out of their faith in an authentic way. So as off-putting as that might sound at first, and even the title, we know it as Possum Trot. It's something that we felt like could be fair to faith and really present it in a way that's real. And if that's going to happen, if faith is going to make its way into things in a direct sense, then that's really the bottom line. Is it grounded in reality and authentic? Then I think you're fine. So we had that advantage. I was a little uncomfortable at first, but it was so natural, and it sort of just came to life in that sense. And then all of the other parts of it, all the other creative elements, you get to bring. There's not the limitation maybe to it, because in terms of like the narrative, these kinds of narratives can be so limiting. But the other elements, cinematography, the set design, production design, these kinds of things, actors, you get to really just reach for the moon. And so that's what we did. We wanted to really enjoy that part of it and do as much as we could with it. It's an independent film. There's only so much you can do. But, we were really excited to try to break some ground there, do something interesting, and we got some really great people involved.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels lived in and natural, and that to the point where someone could just assume that, it just kind of happened, like they turn on the camera and roll, and it's just not how it works. You got to really work to make that happen. And I wanted to shout out some of your actors too, Nika King, who people know from Euphoria, playing Donna Martin, but also the girl playing Terry.
Yeah.
What was
Gianna
her name?
Babnikova.
Yeah, she's going to be a star as well.
Yes, yeah,
her
definitely.
and Nika. I mean, what was it like working with those two, and also the actor playing WC,
Demetrius Gross.
Demetrius, yes, he's amazing too.
Yeah, they all, man. As a director, you just directors can lose sleep over that. It's like, this is deep work, especially for Deanna. She was 12 years old when we did this movie. So she was a young girl. The character's about that age, and for years, you're thinking about who's going to play this person and can they pull this off. You're writing scenes that are going to be so challenging, and so she was certainly the hardest one to find. So Terry, she plays Terry. That's like our primary child character. Out of the 77, we kind of followed Terry's journey, and she's a character that's lived through so much. Sexual abuse, abused, left for dead, all kinds of terrible things. She even pretended to be a cat, just coping with all of this pain.
Yeah, and that really struck me as well. And that's what really drove home. Like, okay, this is a true story. And so my wife is in counseling, and she's like, that sounds familiar. That sounds like. That's a real thing that happens where we don't know why, you can't know why, but it's just, there's this thing that some of these kids take with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she, we worked through the casting with her, and, she's really directable, and she's got just deep natural talent. So once it became clear that she could go where she needed to go, we just trusted she'd get there on set. That's another whole challenge. I mean, auditioning, especially today, it's like, it's all recorded. It's terrible. You don't as often get to be in the same room. So you don't know, did mom coach you for 3 hours to get to that point? I've definitely been in rooms with those kids where you're like, how did you get there on tape? But she did. And then Nika and Demetrius just brought such depth and beauty to it.
Nika became an executive producer on the film.
Yeah. So, we ended up, real quick, I'll try to make it real quick, but we ended up having to recast. We had already filmed a week with a former cast, and the whole thing just melted down. And so we ended up feeling like the movie was going a completely different direction than we needed it to go. And there's just this disagreement on that. So Nika was cast in a supporting role. And so she was on her way to set as a supporting role, and she lands in the lead role, because during that time we're like, we've got to recast this. And so thank God we had her. We already knew she was great. And then Demetrius came on. So it was last minute for those two, and they still did this work that's just powerful work, and they didn't have weeks to prep. It's pretty remarkable. So I'm so grateful for them diving in, trusting me with it, and really going there.
That's unbelievable. Just all these real things that I assume that the reaction that the child had to the water faucet came from real life as well. Kathy, you were telling me about that, how much that moved you.
And I shared that with Nika too. I've been kind of her Uber since she came to town, so it's been really fun getting to know her and how we connect on a lot of different levels. I mean, primarily faith, you know. But yeah, our little guy, when he came into our home, you know, and I have been guest speaking at high schools, local Catholic high schools, and I have a child that we have always been open to life. We had 5 kids and thought, wow, our life is very full, and just became aware of a little kiddo who, at no fault of his own, just needed a home. And we were, you know, you talk about that small little voice or like the loud one, you know, it was like all of a sudden we invited him to come live with us for a little while until grandparents could figure out a plan, and we just loved him. He's just a sweet, adorable, like just fit right in. He would just wear kids because, you know, I think he thought it was at another daycare because we had 5 kids, and he was just, you know, when they were at school, wear kids. And then they asked us to adopt him, and we were like, are we growing our family? I think the Lord's calling us to grow our family. And that's something that I really believe in. And, you know, speaking at college campuses, as we're talking to young people to be, you know, right now you could mentor a kid. You know, you could be a mentor as a college kid. And as you are open to life, maybe being open to life means having 7 kids. Or maybe it means, you know, bringing another child that wasn't born to you or to you and your, you know, spouse or whatever into your home. And had his mom not chosen life, he would not be in our family, you know. So, but yes, to answer your question, he did. It was just, I mean, like, I told that to Nika. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, we were having a great time, play date, like playing with the kids and having dinner, and everything was great. And it was time for bed, so we were like, I turned on the bathtub, and he just started screaming. My husband came in, was like, "What are you doing?" And it was like, I don't know.
So this is something you lived in real life, because
Yes.
this is a scene in the movie.
It was such a,
but it's
yes, it made me like
parallel.
I was like sobbing the first time yes, because, and we don't know why that was scary. I mean, was it just because it was loud, or we don't know.
Yeah, no, we tried to, everything you see in our film, a child going through, either was experienced by that character in real life or was by someone else in the story. And we tried to keep all of those things real. You can't get them all into maybe one character's life in a real way, but we can bring them into the story. So none of these things are made up. These are things that kids live through all the time. It's just their world, and it's a terrible thing. So it's important to know about it.
Well, I just want to say God bless you both for the work, just for what you do as parents. You know, I mean, like so many times on this show, someone will come and, like, I think I'm doing a podcast about a movie, and then I'm just like, wow, okay. Craft and conscience, though, that's what we want to talk about on the show. Thank you both so much for coming. And and so Sound of Hope, you can rent it on Amazon. And is there somewhere where people can reach out to arrange screenings as well?
Yeah, you can. So
we
have a
provide
website
a link,
called PossumTrotImpact.com.
Okay.
You can find us on Facebook as well. There's definitely ways to find us, and what we're doing is offering free screenings for churches and nonprofits and orgs that are interested in this. So we want people to use this as a tool to encourage people to get involved, just to encourage those who are already doing it. I mean, it's very versatile. Sometimes it's just nourishing to experience it. But, you know, overall, I would say first, it's a movie that you will enjoy, whether or not this is an issue you want to dive into or not. If you're interested in films that make you think and feel deeply, this will do that. I mean, I know it can be off-putting to be like, I'm going to go to a movie and be told what to do, and I don't know about that. It's a gritty film. It's not, you know, over the top in that sense, but it'll make you think, it'll make you feel. That's what I enjoy as a creative, is allowing people an opportunity to have a real experience, not just see something. I don't want to create decoration, you know. I want you to really. That's why I love film so much. Is you just have such an advantage in terms of spiritual and emotional impact, all of those kinds of things. So, I think you'll just really enjoy it, especially, we're really finding young people really get a hold of it. So,
well, yeah, it came through. Yeah, you walked the walk and talked the talk. It's amazing. Kathy, where can people find ways to help in Kansas City?
Yeah, through the Archdiocese, archkck.org /foster. So you just go on the website, you could search foster. It's the foster ministry through the Archdiocese is, the name is Thrive, and it came from a quote from Archbishop who said, to be truly pro-life, I'm going to paraphrase, I'm sure I'm going to say it wrong, to be truly pro-life, we must also make sure that every child has a place where he or she can thrive. Mm-hmm. So I was actually told, we got to change that because, there's Thrive everything, but I just think it's so beautiful, just how much he had that vision to take care of the vulnerable, and so we're trying to do the thing and mobilize the church in Northeast Kansas. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You guys are in my prayers, you and your families. This podcast is brought to you by the Center for Catholic Media at Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. It is produced and hosted by Michael Coy and Grant Stoner. Executive producer Jared Zimmerer. Edited by John Byer and Oasis Studio 7. To see episodes in advance and gain access to a mountain of amazing content, subscribe to media.benedictine.edu. Until next time, have a blessed week.